Thank you for staying with us. Today we get into our big stories. In fact, our big story. In fact, do anything about it. Now, you look at the pot of issues we have to digest, the falling cedi. You look at the rising prices across the world. Well, they've stabilized, according to the BBC. Prices have peaked. They are falling now. But what does it mean in terms of our own national dynamics? We still have the taxes slapped on petroleum products. Deputy Energy Minister Ejapa Mercer has been saying that we can take about 3 of them off. But how do we deal with this situation as drivers' unions are also threatening to increase fares once more? Joining us for this discussion that affects Edward Abambere Bawa, who is Member of Parliament for Bongo. He is on the Energy and Mines Committee of Parliament. They join us for the conversation. Later, we shall weave in some energy analysts as well to share their thoughts, candid thoughts, on where we find ourselves. Well, let me say a very good morning to the team, the crack team. In fact, let me say the A-team we have on board this morning. A-team on the AM show. Dr. Amo Asreka Kray.
I'm fine, boss. I'm very fine.
Dr. Amo, good morning to you.
Morning.
I'm bleeding.
So just to make a point, so when I was coming here, then I saw that on Goyle it was still 8.4 something.
Right.
So I said, oh, let me rush and buy this thing before they change their thing.
You mean this very morning?
This morning. So when I went to buy the thing, I finished and I did the calculation. I realized that no, I had been charged on the new rates now. But because I thought it was the old rate, I wanted to at least get fuel into my tank before they adjusted. So that is how it is.
Let me also add that we have joining the conversation via Zoom, Duncan Amoah, Executive Secretary of COPEC. Mr. Amoah, a very good morning. Duncan with us. Duncan Amoah?
Benjamin, I'm here.
All right. Thank you for joining us on phone, rather. I hope you're well.
Very well. It is a beautiful morning. The good, I don't know. Especially when your blood pressure is racing to, digits that you didn't imagine.
Right.
Anytime. Benjamin, I'm not certain anybody will be comfortable with where we are. Either the person is probably getting, free fuel or some largesse that he doesn't even see. But I've had very senior people, even within government, who themselves are worried. And
right.
I do think that it is time really, really, really to fold our sleeves and get down to work. This cannot be sustained. 10 cities, almost 11 cities, 20% shy. It's something we probably never imagined, but further interviews on this matter, clearly, we see the signs, we see the numbers coming. We put in some of these mass communication to avert the minds of authorities to potential danger. The only thing you get eventually is that you are probably insulted, called names and all of that. But the pumps would expose all of us eventually. When you talk about these things, to be faced with, I have had an MP go on mass, radio insult. That is not me. It cannot be me. I'm not the one selling the product. What you have in the system, you can defend all you want, that it is whatever, but eventually total prices would come, gold prices will come, Shell will come, and they are not declining, as others would want to, suggest. They are going up, largely provided by platforms like yours, by civil society, platforms like ours, by, the day-to-day Ghanaian, people. They've had a lot to say, but so far nothing has been done.
Let me put together quite a number of issues. I want to start the conversation off with you so that situated from where, Parliament can take it from and maybe bring some ease, some alleviation to the ordinary Ghanaian. I must admit that nowadays, something I'd never done previously. Now, when I fill at the fuel pump up to about 51, so you see, I have to manage. Dr. Dixon Adumaku Kisi, Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utuam, shared with me here yesterday that he wishes he had a smaller car, and that for him, he's having to fuel half of his usual consumption because things are rather difficult, and contrary to what most people believe, members of parliament don't get any. The African average for fuel products hovered around 5 cedis, 97 pesos. That was, at the time, $0.98. At the time then, we were selling, okay, at 7 cedis, which was around $1.14 pesos. That. And currently, when you look at the comparative, while we're paying $1 and let's say 14 cents back then, we're now paying the equivalent of $1.51. We are one of the highest, the likes of Rwanda, Uganda, Morocco, and so many other countries. You put that side by side with what the world has been telling us, that the global Brent prices have stabilized at $130, and in fact, they've fallen drastically, hovering around $100 or so now, currently. Yet, in Ghana, it doesn't look like per our dollar issues. How do they come together to make any sense for you, Duncan Amwa? And how possibly can we do anything about it to ease the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian?
Well, I could possibly get us to probably do this, intellectually. So it says that the average price of diesel around the world is around $1.26 per liter. And however, there's a substantial difference in these prices among countries. As a general rule, richer countries the countries that produce and export oil have significantly lower prices. One notable exception is the U.S., which is an economically advanced country but has low gas prices. The differences in prices across countries are due to various taxes and subsidies. All countries have access to the same petroleum prices of international markets, but then decide to impose different taxes. As a result, the retail price is different. This is just to say that there are certain benchmarks that global prices do follow. Whilst the richer countries have higher, prices, simply because purchasing power with them is a lot, free. The poorer countries often have lower prices. And then it goes on to further explain that it is not just the poorer countries, but those countries that produce and export oil oftentimes have far lower prices as related to those who do not. And so it cites there. Though they are very advanced, prices you find at their pumps are still quite lower than what you find in the European Union and places like Hong Kong, Macau, and others. So we, as a country, if you ask, have simply deviated all these norms. In country, you cannot compare what Ghanaians earn here to what the EU citizens would earn, what a South African will probably earn for a day's job.
So of course, purchasing power
low.
parity comes in, and ours can't be compared.
About the highest in terms of numbers currently, and I have seen some, charts doing the rounds. A lot of it incorrect. If you do not factor what you have now, and you choose to do the lower base numbers, don't forget that once Total, Gold, Shell, the three majors, decide to put a price, between them you are doing an amount. So oftentimes we will go for that band because they constitute more than half, actually, of the market. It means that of every 10 that buy fuel, between 5, 6 will be buying from either of these three. Once their prices move to a certain, of course, not everybody will go up to that level, but to most Ghanaians who probably walk around 6 out of 10, you are looking at these three, providing them fuel. And so we should be worried. Reduce nothing. You talk of the refinery, you cannot produce oil, as a country, and shut your refinery. You cannot produce oil in today's time and continue to leave everything, the crude, in the hands of foreign oil companies. They should do the selling, they do the lifting for you, they do everything. They sell and come and give you your money, and you sit and say, oh, we have received 300 million, we have received. You do not even receive crude to process locally. So look at this. Countries like Venezuela, right, will produce the oil, would export some, right? But what they give to their locals, you can drive for next to nothing. Even today, with Russia, Ukraine bombing and whatever, you still drive around a lot easier. 1,000 barrels per day. You are producing far more than you consume. You consume less than 100,000 barrels. So assuming you put the numbers together, whatever.
Right.
Forgive me, Benjamin. These things get me quite emotional sometimes. But clearly, the safety net, the founding president got. Let me put a refinery here because the Volta Basin and other places have given some indication of oil. When we find oil, we can process for our people, right? When we rather found the oil, the refinery has gone. I think we should be bold enough at this point to also look at institutions like BOSS and the role they play vis-a-vis to the ordinary Ghanaian.
Okay.
You would expect BOSS to at least be holding strategic stocks like it was set up to do. So that when world market prices look crazy, like we've just seen in the past 2 weeks, you would have something to fall back on from BOSS. That is also not the case. So that safety net is also not functioning the way it should. So now, whatever Russia decides to do with Ukraine, some Ghanaians who don't even have an idea that the country exists call you going. It's scary, Benjamin. It's really scary. And I don't think any official, any authority, anyone in any higher position, be it parliament, be it a public office, Article 71 office holders, churches, every Ghanaian is worried. From the little, if you open your talks about prices likely to jump, they will rather come at the messenger and not the message. The message would eventually reflect at the pumps. Sadly, people are being forced, Benjamin, to pay more than they can afford.
Hold it for me, because I'm intentionally starting with you, and we have energy analyst, your colleague, Kojo Poku, on the other line as well. He joins us via Zoom. And that's the interesting picture. In the UK, they are selling at around £1.60, okay? It was projected at a point sometime last week, it hit £1.63. Some analysts have projected this is just a false lull, the falling prices, and that it could go up again, and that a liter of fuel could actually go up to £3, okay? But those are mere projections. That's not the reality now. But here we are in Ghana, and we're paying almost something close per liter. It's almost 11 cedis at some prices as it is now. I mean, does it make any sense where we find ourselves? How do we deal with this crisis? Kojo?
Well, good morning, and good morning to my brother, the trotro driver, Duncan Amwan.
Your brother, Duncan, the one, the trotro driver.
The trotro driver, yeah. Duncan is a trotro driver. He's a GPRTU chairman. But good morning to my good brother, Duncan, and good morning to your viewers. I think what Duncan said, let me now inform Duncan about, we are not doing even 200,000 barrels a day that Duncan thinks we are doing. We are doing way less than 140,000. The upstream is in a mess. So when Duncan hopes that our windfall from the upstream would have come to save us, because the upstream is in a mess, we don't have that safety net. The upstream, when we started 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was doing something like 90,000 barrels a day. Today, we are still doing around 140 and 150 at most, okay? So the 4 parcels every 6 months that we are lifting with these numbers only gives us something like $192 million, which in the scheme of government affairs is nothing. But let me now go on to talk about what you asked. Look, we don't only need a plan for the next month or two. We need a 2022 plan. What is happening now is worse than the pandemic. When we went into the COVID pandemic, government had a plan to help Ghanaians. Free this, free that, free this. Be it we could afford it or we couldn't afford it, we came up with something to help Ghanaians. When beginning of 2020, we were buying fuel at 4 cedis. Economy. Government is also a buyer of the same product. So if government doesn't do something, come up with a 2022 plan between now and December, what it intends to do to help Ghanaians, we are going to have a system where the economy might collapse. Okay? The issue of us producing oil is that we need a certain amount of production per day, which will have been something like by now, if we're doing something like 1 million barrels a day as a country, then yes, we can afford it. The Ghanaian is suffering. Average person today waking up to see 10 cedis at the pump.
Right.
It's not a joke. Okay? Because how does that person, the psychological effect of it alone is crazy. And the dollar to the cedi is the problem. In terms of the high prices, I think we've ridden the storm. Last week, crude oil went to $130. Police have said that they will pump more crude oil. So it means that if nothing drastic happens again between the war, we are going to be around that $100 a barrel, which means that if the cedi gains strength and the cedi comes back to about maybe 6.7, 6.9, and Bank of Ghana is able to supply Bank of Ghana is able to supply forex to the BDCs and the OMCs at the interbank rate.
Right.
Then this.
And Duncan, just hold for me there. And gentlemen, Edward Amambere, Member of Parliament for Bongo, Dr. Stephen Amwa, Member of Parliament for Nshia. So I had to do this, situate the conversation with the analysts as, you know, from a perspective of industry watchers and players. They laid the foundation for the conversation. Thank you for being so patient with me. In the context of all that they've said, what is your read of Business and Financial Times? cedi hits 7-year low as value erodes by 17% mid-March, and this it's alarming. Basically, it's alarming. How do you react to where we find ourselves? Almost 11 cedis per liter.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Good morning first to my colleagues. I'm talking of myself and the viewers. Since the crisis that we found ourselves in, particularly with petroleum products, the narrative, particularly from managers of the economy, have always been that because of the rising prices in crude oil in the international markets, that was the reason why we're getting the problems we're getting. Indeed, this issue was going up until the new kid on the block, that because of the war in Ukraine, that's why we are having this problem. Today, as at this morning, crude prices now is around $99. In fact, your business section of your news
business desk
right, reported that it's $99. So it means that we've moved from last week of about $131, I'm talking of Brent, to about $99. So ordinarily,
I think either Duncan or Kojo mentioned it was at
vary depending on the type of crude you are making. But basically on Brent, as at this morning, it was $99 per barrel. Now, if that is anything to go by, the expectation would have been that, and the reduction has been coming down for a longer period. You had a situation where prices were coming down, and there's a basic reason for that. The reason also being that China has reduced its intake because of the new emergence of some virus, because they have done some, how do you call them, lockdown. Then it makes the product...
It can be pumped into other parts of the world.
So that's one of the main reasons why these things have happened. So definitely, if
so just to go on, so you subscribe to the arguments of some analysts, like in the UK, who are saying that this is a false law. It's only going down because of some specific situations, but it will bounce back.
But usually, petroleum prices are always volatile. Even it takes just a president in another country to just issue a threat, and prices will go up.
Right.
So it's so volatile. So it is so sensitive to what happens, and before you realize it starts going up, depending on the situation. But I'm just looking at as we have it today. So if you have a situation where one of the main factors that affect export prices seems to be coming down, then you still have a jump of our export prices. It means that the factors now go beyond just the prices in the crude, in the international market. It has to do with other factors. There has been a stability of our taxes. When I say stability, it means that since the last time we started discussing, there has not been an increase. The cedi is simply embarrassing the country in terms of the way it loses its value. Duncan & Co. had done some work, and of course, but you just read here, from the beginning of the year up till now, we are talking about the value going down by 17.1%?
Yes.
17.1%. Yes. That is disastrous. That is very disastrous. So when you have a situation like that, definitely those forex losses, because look, when the what do you call it, the BDCs and OMCs, when they buy the products, they get line. They give about 14 or 15 days or something like that to pay back, because most of them, they do credit purchasing.
Right.
So you take that. Then they will then pick up the money. And remember that they give it to you, and then you sell it in cedis. So within those 14 days, if the cedi is depreciating, what then happens is that when they collect the money, they also need about a week or so to change it into, into dollar, to be able to go and purchase.
Someone must pay for that.
So when you look at the cumulative forex loss, it becomes a liability. That somebody has to expand prices. So the performance of the cedi is something that is very serious. Now, as we speak, and if you can
land on this point, because I want to go to the cedi bit with Dr. Stephen Amwa especially, so that we can focus on that before we get into
it. So so you can do that.
No. Make
no. So the point I'm just trying to say that if you look at the performance of the cedi has been terrible. I think that the central bank has to do something seriously about it, because if we do not stabilize that, you know that when the central bank decided to auction the dollar, it was oversubscribed about 200 million. It tells you they just brought out about $70-something million, but it was oversubscribed about 200 million.
It tells you about the demand for the dollar.
And the petroleum sector.
And once that demand is there, your currency will
go. And if you look at our total import bill, petroleum products in terms of the petroleum sector, and I'm talking particularly the downstream, takes about 20 days and you are not getting it. Definitely your cedi will not survive.
Right.
Till this morning, a dollar now is 8 cedis. 8 cedis. Did you imagine that in March, today is March 17th, that our dollar will be 8 cedis?
Let me come to you, Dr. Stephen Amwa. On March 17, interestingly, our cedi has hit a 7-year low, with its value eroding as of this point by 17% on March the 7th, almost 11 cedis. And what is the reality you see? What's your perspective on this?
Okay, thank you very much. My regards to our viewers this morning, and Kwejo and Duncan too, and my honorable, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think what we are experiencing is extremely and we need to also situate this in the context of what is happening all over in the world, so that all of us can make the right attempt and analyze this from the right perspective and get solutions to it. Because the bottom line is, as Duncan said, people are suffering. Ghanaians are suffering, and it's a fact.
Past that too.
I
don't think people are no longer interested in. If you look at the messages coming through on Facebook, people are saying they are tired. They are not interested in who is to this and that. They want solutions.
So that's why I'm saying that if you want solutions, first thing to do is to analyze this sense of judgment and decision-making processes in handling some of these things. When it comes to exchange rate, Ben, right? You say you're Ben.
Yes, it's the exchange rate.
Boss, when you want to speak, sometimes you are not allowed to speak. See, I blame all the time, is that there is no way short-term approach to solving currency issue in any part of the world is sustainable. And that's what all of us have been doing. You see, Honorable is talking about the fact that, central
stopgap measures.
Do something. But the fact is, when we even do something in a short term, what do? We leave it in a long term. Look, what are you wearing? What am I wearing? What is he wearing? What are we having here? Even by observation, as one of the accepted methods for research, indicates that about purchase, we imported them. That's why I went and joked with even government commercial people are insulting. I'm just joking. But then, boss, these are issues that MPP and DC could have put long-term measures in place in solving them. So
what are these long-term measures?
The issue is that there are key products and services here that we have no business in even thinking of importing one item. I'm being honest with you. How can Ghana import fruit juice? Why? These are not complex areas. These do not require complex technology in managing the value chains, right from inbound to outbound. When you squeeze juice, you add preservatives. It becomes free.
We have a comfy juice, but of course we are not
that is what
able to replicate.
So how do we have
it?
Boss, I wish one day we have time to talk this. At length. How do you have it? How much consumption are we making domestically? How much are we exporting? We have the land there. We only need machine with high capacities. You don't need somebody who has done PhD in astronomy, anything.
You know why I mentioned juice? Because if you recall, back we spoke about how we would, broaden this to cover even our country and even export, if you recall.
No, but let me ask
what happened to that?
Our coffee juice alone cannot even meet the demand for one region. You understand what I'm saying? Cannot meet the demand for one. And two, mostly MPP and DC, we do things, I'm part, so I won't blame somebody, I'm part. We do things without the right scientific analysis and design of value chains to say, for instance, I even have it, but there's litigation over 2,000 plot of land. That for almost 10 years I'm trying to acquire for farming. I'm into farming for a long. I've been doing farming for almost 50 years.
2,000 plots of land. Wow.
Yes. I haven't finished. I paid them. I've been paying them for over 10 years now. And now there's a litigation over it. No, I'm making this point. Maybe
it's very.
And I wanted some Chinese to help me because I don't have the financial muscle to develop such a huge land. And they wanted us to grow grass, special grass for cow.
Wow.
It's very expensive. Trust me. Do you know what they wanted us to do? To take temperature of the land for 6 months. Different varied ones. 2, grow some at chosen or selected spots. Test everything in it, whether it meets the international standard. Then we can go ahead. Then after that, we will design the value chain. The size we need, the quantity that we need, the price, the machines, even exporting it, the risk that are likely. We do that. But ask yourself whether MPP and DC, let's be very honest, all the policies we want to roll out, we can provide a simple value chain document that can tell you that this thing can provide whatever we need for even 70% of our population. Will cut down importation by this. We need the machine by this. We need the land by this. The owners of the land, we've gone into agreement with them before we even roll out. These are the basis for most of the problems we have in unemployment, exchange rate, and all this.
Right. We'll get into this.
So what I'm trying to say
is it not because we are making, for example, the NDPC and all of that, we are politicizing them? Because in the end, those are some of the things we should be doing, right?
These are the policies. The NDPC, they are like a company. Directors give vision. You understand what I'm saying? Then maybe at the middle level, strategic managers will find competitive edge techniques and whatever, and then you operationalize it. But all these things, before they do, the point I'm making is that it's properly and well designed. Look, the MPP's 1D1F is the most fantastic thing we need. But let's be honest and ask ourselves. Now, can we tell Ghanaians how much has it really? Do we have the figures? Before we wrote out, can we tell Ghanaians we had all the figures for all the industries? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. So these have challenged our production unit. And for that matter, simple things that we do, because look, preference for goods of the same liquidity and risk factors in our country, we prefer outside. Just check.
So basically, we all agree it's good. Has it lived up to expectation for you?
Personally, I would say no. But to me, it's good. I mean, it's a
don't think
good
anyone
start.
disputes that.
It's a good start. We've done something. I'm not saying we've not done anything at all. But probably if we had designed and had figures and know that we are going to get about 4 billion in 2 years, going to employ 100,000 people, going to these are the design, the chain, these people can get, it would have been easy. But coming back to the CD thing.
Briefly on that.
First thing, now, we should work on our interest rate. Because short-term interest rate can affect if we try to let it go up. It will worry us, but it has to go up a bit.
Right.
To which I'm sure is going up. We should work hard to reduce our inflationary rate. We'll work on that. Because in most cases, internally, if the interest rates are going up, people on the exchange rate stuff will go down. Two, we should also be thinking of going into hedging as a country. Now we have a lot of people. Yes. You can hedge the commodity. If you go, you use what is called option. You pay premium. You calculate that into your losses and profitability or your expenditures. Then you know that if I put in 1 million, if the commodity price goes $400, I will stay with it. If there are the things done in the developed worlds, within their to mitigate the impact on our government pairs and on the people. So
it's interesting that you mentioned all of these, and you're part of the finance committee. I don't know why. Maybe
our finance committee made up of NDC MPP.
Right.
We don't decide on these.
No, I get it. But
people like
I'm saying that these ideas you're sharing.
Discretion of functions.
No, I get you. I'm just saying that you have these brilliant ideas. I'm wondering why your people may not be buying into them to do some of the things you're talking of. But let me come to you. Have we over-dollarized our economy? We often talk about it, but what is the reality and how much is it impacting us now? And from what Dr. Amoah says, how can we tap into some of these long term? Because he says both of you, NDC and MPP, have failed in that regard.
Yeah. In a long term,
let me tell you, we have a problem. We have a challenge today. The challenge is that we simply cannot keep our CD stable. The challenge is that our prices at the pump are going up.
Sure.
The challenge is that this has a direct effect on the Ghanaian. Food inflation has gone up. He was on one of your sister stations.
He says we are overproducing.
That we are overproducing, but the challenge, according to me, that's what he said, even though there are some 5 unions that have challenged him today. 5 unions in the sector have challenged him today. But I want to take his word for it. But his argument is that at the farm gates, the prices are very cheap, but it's because of the fuel. That was the reason he gave. So I'm just trying to tell you that is the crisis that we have as we speak today. How do we get that solved? Look,
so you are looking at the short term?
Yes, I'm looking at short to medium term, and I'll make that. You see, Duncan, look.
And then the Temoy refinery.
Yes,
yes,
Temoy refinery. We should look at those things first. And Kojo Poku is here. Myself and him have had some discussions around TOR and its issues there. If you look at per day, that's the capacity it can produce. As we speak, for a long time now, TOR is not working. For a long time now, TOR is not working. Is it possible? And I've listened to BDCs talk about it. Is it possible that Boston, as we speak, as the holder of strategic stock, they've done that many times. In the past, we've done that. We buy crude from Nigeria. We give it to TOR to process. TOR processes it and give it to us. And so our existing stocks, we'll give it to GOIL. And try to see if we can force down that even BDCs themselves have given. It reduces some of these challenges that we have, because then we will have the refinery, we will have our refinery producing. Now, whilst we look at it long term of what we want to do with TOR, whether we should expand it or we should do that, that is one area we can. If you look at our upstream sector, it's not doing very well, which is true. I'm being sincere with you. If you look at 10 is not producing very well. We have so much litigations on places that we should have been developing.
In fact, our production values have really
come down.
fallen.
We have unnecessary litigations because of government policies on some things which is being litigated in courts. And so because I agree that we are not. But that being said, we are still making in the neighborhood of about 200 million because of the fact that if you look at what we put on terms of our benchmark revenues for 2022, we are going far ahead of that. So we are making some windfalls. Even by our petroleum agreements, we have what we call additional oil entitlements. When you go beyond a particular threshold, there are some amount of particular time that you will look at, say, our taxes. And I was just sitting and trying to list. Look, do you know that in the intervening period that we have had these situations where fuel prices have now moved from roughly around 4 point something to about 8 point something, the intervening period, the UPPF, that's a Unified Petroleum Price, a fund, was increased by 164. You had boss margin.
When you say 164, what?
164%.
Percent?
Yes.
Okay.
You have boss margin moving from 3 to 9. That's about 200%. You had fuel margin increasing by 233%. Then we drew the attention to the fact that the Deputy Minister for Energy had said that there are some trade taxes that can go. And I agree with him. Last week I had occasion to indicate that. I said, look, currently, the 20 pesos we pay for the energy sector levy. If you look at why government brought it in because of excess capacity charges, power purchase agreement. That on any day, if I'm able to dispatch, I should be giving you X amount of power on daily basis.
Right.
Then
so
I get.
I'm not catching when you finish. I want to find out the tax. I think is 75 pesos on a liter, isn't it?
Which one?
Total taxes on per.
No, we can get it. It's on your screen there.
And I'm saying that is it not 75 pesos?
What is that?
For which one?
For
or
which
is it
one?
the entire component? Yes.
No, for one
It can be 75 because even if I just take
per liter. I'm not sure per liter.
Yeah, so that's one. So these things are all per liter. These measures, these are all slapped on per liter. So you're looking at, and those ones, you are looking at the taxes and levies, and you're looking at what we call statutory margins. Statutory margins are those that we have passed in Parliament that are put on it. So these are the to make was that if you look at our peak demand today, our peak demand is now 4,300.
Right.
So it tells you that we are actually not paying capacity charges again. Indeed, we need to begin to start planning, or else demand will outstrip supply in terms of power. So obviously, energy sector levy is not being used again because we are not paying for that.
Right.
So I can understand where Ejapa is coming from.
And you agree with it?
Yes, per liter.
And what percentage?
No, I've not calculated the
so that is
percentage, but it's 20 pesos per liter.
liter.
So you have that. Then, because we are making about 200 million thereabout in terms of our upstream sector, if you take out our special petroleum tax, I know Duncan has spoken about that many times, which is 46 pesos. Because if you look on your screen, you are displaying it on your screen. It's about 46 pesos. If you take it, because and it's supposed to be for budget support. So if you are making so much money at the upstream sector, it means that when you take this 46 pesos, you are sorted. Then the sanitation and pollution, you can take that out. That alone gives you 76 pesos. That's 1 CD, 16 pesos from what they call it, your export prices. So I'm just saying that when I look, because see, the tendency we have in this country is that if this phone is 2 CDs and they increase it to 2 CDs, even finally, the causes, the factors that brought this into 2 CDs are reversed. Most often than not, our people do not reverse the price.
Right.
That
is true.
They don't reverse the price.
It's like transport fare.
Yes, they don't reverse it. And so if you delay in doing these things and introducing these measures, what you are going to do is that you are going to have prices that will go and will never come down.
Okay.
And so these are the areas we should be looking at.
This one says, it's for you, Stephen. It says, and I have to take some of it out, you are in government and you must be practical. You are not here to add to you on that. Let me bring in Duncan Amwa, Executive Secretary for COPEC. No, I'm just laying it so that when you bring in your rebuttals, you can just respond to this person. Duncan Amwa, I want you to look at, very quickly, both Duncan and Kojo. I'll start with you, Duncan. The dollarization of our economy and how this is burning us now. It's burning our feet. We've not dealt with the dollar problem. We've dollarized our economy. With that, and looking at what Ejapa Mercer has said, the Deputy Energy Minister, about the 3 taxes that can be taken off our petroleum products, which ones do you feel should go? Duncan, I'll start with you.
Well, Benjamin, I think Edward Bauer has done a lot of service to all of us you cannot do away with dollarization, competitive advantage, what you have a competitive edge over. You cannot continue to ground your refinery and go to the open market, get dollar, source for dollar, just to buy from a fall of that refinery. And so are you also helping that particular economy outside? You have a refinery. If the refining business was bad, Dangote will not be pumping in 12 billion USD to get the largest. So saves your economy, basically, because you would not go through that cycle, repeated cycle of,
So
fuel
you should
importers
offer-
getting on the open market,
you should offer
needing to exchange the
solutions.
cedi to a dollar every time to pay their suppliers outside. You could be curbing that problem. If you are able to get your refinery, get a couple, then boss can also, be put on standby, so that whatever excess production numbers there are, you probably could be getting some strategic stock also as a country.
Right.
Because we have failed to utilize these assets to the benefit for what we set them up for. When we were put today only out there to do trading and probably provide storage space to BDC. That was not the cardinal principle for which these institutions were set up with the taxpayers' money.
Right.
So we may have to just revisit the Blue Book again, and when your refinery here has been left idle and abandoned, almost. Again, you were talking of the taxes. These are, so you see, in the price situation we find ourselves, there's the external and the internal bits. The external, what the geopolitical bits throw at all of us. We may not have much control as to what Russia does with Ukraine. You made your refinery to work. If you made sure boss was holding strategic stocks, there could be moments that you probably not even have to import spot prices or future prices, right? Today, if price on the international market gets so bullish, as in $200 a metric, boss could step in and say, hey, we have products for, 2-3 months, right? You don't need to bring in products at this time. And flood the market with it. Boss is failing to provide Ghanaians that cushioning. And the earlier we all were working, you probably be looking at a way of also helping the local currency to remain a bit, the pressure reduces. 400 million is what you are doing every month.
Duncan, we're looking at solutions. So moving forward, what are some of the taxes, for example, per what Ejapa Mercer says, that you feel can be taken out? Which specific ones do you feel can be taken out comfortably by Ghana as of?
And I'm happy with the way and manner they also work with the NPA and everybody. He is right when he says 3 of these taxes, the special petroleum tax, the sanitation pollution levy, which we had issues with in the first place. Let me put it to the 2 MPs over there to ensure that they bring back the NPA to the floor of Parliament or the Ministry of Energy to explain why Ghanaians should continue to pay for price stabilization and recovery. Because you are not stabilizing anything, you are not paying for under recoveries because of deregulation. If we need money to pay for premix subsidies, let the NPA go back to Parliament with it or whatever to be specifically channeled towards premix.
Okay.
But why you collect 16 pesos and then you are asked questions what we are doing with those monies, because you are not pumping anything to stabilize anything like the French government has done for its people 3-4 days ago. We don't have any stabilization cushioning. Hitting 10 cities and diesel is almost gone to 11.
Good point made, Duncan. Just hold it for me. Kojo, right before we come into the studio, and of course when we come, then we'll be looking at Parliament proper and what the planning is. And of course, you get to respond to that question and move on. I would also just hint you, Honorable Bauer, that I would also want to find out what has happened with that urgent question you filed. I would have us look at that. But let me come to you quickly to do right now to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian. If you could make it brief and say 2 minutes, I'd be very grateful.
What I said earlier was that we need a 2022 plan. Like I said, we are in uncharted territory where government needs to come out with a plan. Now, from what my brother Bawa said, that the special petroleum tax, when I have only removed taxes from petroleum products with a caveat. And the caveat is that we should now cap the marketers and dealers margin. Now, let me correct something that you put on the screen. What you put on the screen includes marketers and dealers margin. That is not capped and that is not permanent. It's not determined. So I think you should remove that. The taxes and levies per liter is around 2/3 of that. It's determined by the OMCs themselves.
Right.
But if government wants to reduce taxes, and I think it should be something that needs to be done to help the Ghanaian, the caveat I have for government is that then they should cap the margin within 2022, where government can remove maybe the special petroleum tax that my brother mentioned, the pollution tax, and the price stabilization and recovery tax. That will give us about 72 pesos reduction in the fuel prices. Then you cap the OMC. I say that is that the OMCs can now eat into that space, and Ghanaians will not see the benefit because it is a deregulated market. So if government reduce 72, they are recovering their losses and eat into that space. So if government is going to take a hit, then we are in uncharted territory, and nobody should say that we are in a defense. That the caveat to that is that cap the OMC's marketers and dealers margin. That is on that. Now, the dollarization. Let me say something. Look, 1D1F, which my
you have about a minute, Kojo.
From last year, when me and my brother Duncan did a presentation to MPA, what we said was that one of the things that the downstream should have, we should have a desk at the central bank. Okay, the central bank should have having this dollar problem for OMCs and BDCs, because OMCs and BDCs are having to go to the open market to buy dollar to affect me and you. Why can't central bank make provision for dollar for the OMCs and then the OMCs to buy dollar at the open market, the black market, which is today around 8 cedis, whilst interbank is much lower? Okay, now let me quickly touch on what my brother Stephen said about the 1D1F.
Very quickly. Very quickly.
There are like top 5 imports in this country. If you want to do industries to a specific need. I'll give you one typical example. Farm milk. For how many years has farm milk been importing milk into this country to do ice cream? Whilst we could start dairy farming today, cows, moo. Okay, why can't we start that? In the next 5 years, we have enough.
Point made. Point made, Kojo, and I think Dr. Stephen Amwa agrees with you. So, Doc, I want you, this is your final submission. I know you posed earlier that we don't want lectures, we want solutions. And finally, I want you to tell me, what can Parliament do about this situation as it is now? Is it hauling? Is it the finance minister? Because there's quite a lot of the component that is under him.
I think some of the answers are beyond me. I'm one person, I normally don't want to really veer into areas I really don't have expertise. But when it comes to petroleum product business, I'm not really well versed there. But then I look at it rather than lecture. I think you asked me about exchange rate. And my understanding, I'm putting it forward on this platform.
Right.
I couldn't have said, I'm with government, so I won't speak. And I think what I said, if we take it serious, it's just recurring issues, uncertainty. And my question is, as a country, what has been our strategic approach towards that? It is time we sat down once and say that, where are the other options, or what are the other options? Can we put them in place?
Do you think we need, for example, NDC and MPP especially, to sit down?
Perfect.
Let's plan.
Perfect.
To this field thing and the flip-flop of our city. Let's sit down.
Perfect.
Is that what we need?
That is what I mean. When it comes to currency, yes. But what are the strategic alternatives that the two of us or the relevant stakeholder can sit down and plan for once? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. The value chain I was talking about was what Kojo was talking about. We feed in the inbounds. Not that somebody is lecturing. It's a question you've asked. And sometimes, too, we have our own jurisdictions and leverages within government setup. Where you are is different from what you can do. It doesn't mean those that are not working. They're also doing very well. For instance, 1D1F is very good. But, of course, I think we would have done better if we had really begging the government now. And I know they are doing it. This is my input. the relevant stakeholder organizations, such as BOST, Temori Refinery, even though it's down, we have people there, MP and all those guys, they should come together. Because we have a situation now, they can bring these brothers of mines, they all have different areas of expertise, we all come together and work on some. We need to find long-term planning against these uncertainties that keep on reoccurring.
That will involve all parties.
And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's all that I'm saying. And we should also stop politicizing it. Fine, NDC can say with this, they are also doing, have no problem.
Right.
But I'm praying that one day, even if the unlikely event that NDC can, MPP should be in a with us. This is what I want.
Your final comments, and don't forget to chip in what has happened after that urgent question you filed for Kenneth Oyata to appear before Parliament.
So first and foremost, let me state that based on what Kojo Poku said about the national plan for 2022, I was expecting that in this period of crisis, that the president would have addressed the nation.
Are you talking about the State of the Nation address?
He will do it.
I'm coming.
There were circumstances led to postponement.
Please, Edward.
Once you come and say that, as if you don't know why.
Unfortunately, we don't have time, so I won't.
Actually, I do not know the reason because it was fixed last week.
3rd of March.
3rd of March. Then it has been postponed indefinitely. So I don't know the reason. The president should have been addressing the country about the state of the nation and what are the things, the strategies government is taking to put in place. But as we speak now, he's at large. We don't know what is happening. 2, the issue of the 5 areas.
The president is at large.
We're bleeding for time, so please.
The other one, Kojo Poku talked about strategic areas that we could look at.
You know that is not true.
You know when they introduced this whole issue of benchmark revenues, what then happened was that it then encouraged a lot of what they call imports and other things. When there was a reversal, you saw that, for example, rice farmers, and randomly because of then government said they were suspending that. If you recall, as we speak now, we don't even know the status of it. These are areas that, if you are looking at policies based on things that can impact on your economy, but not on populism, then these are the areas.
So just wrap with
yes.
What's
and the
urgent question?
And the last one is the urgent question. As we speak now, it has not been listed for hearing.
Right.
I do not know whether the delay is coming from the finance minister's side or the fact that maybe energy, petroleum and anything falls under the Ministry of Energy. If you look at the indicators that affect the Ministry of Finance. So the Minister of Finance should be seen to be talking to us.
So are you going to push for that to happen soon?
Yes. Tomorrow is Friday. I'll be asking as to why maybe the question has not been filed yet. Maybe if possible, maybe tomorrow it may pop up.
I also think, I think instantly we should have very broad stakeholders.
Right. Joining us for this discussion, I want to say a very big thank you to Duncan Amwa, Executive Secretary of COPEC. Duncan, Edasi Bebre, Kojo Poku as well, Energy Analyst. Kojo, thank you so much for your time with us.
They should look for me.
Morning. There's also
should look for me.
Dr. Stephen Amwa is saying you guys should look for him.
Hold on. Tell Dr. Amwa that he's changed his number.
Oh, no.
Okay, for Inshayaso constituency, a member of, which committee is it again?
Finance
Committee, yes.
And then,
thank you for that. It just skipped my mind. Finance Committee. And then Edward Abambire Bawa, Honorable Member of Parliament for Bongo, and a member of the Energy and Mines Committee of Parliament. Thank you so much for joining the Stay Tuned. Find out.